fight fans, for episode 47 of the Hooks in MMA podcast. We've got a special episode this week with Jared the Mountain Vanderaa joining us. He's fighting at the fight night in Vegas coming up, so we're going to be talking a bit about that and looking a bit back on UFC 262. Had some really interesting fights. Would love to hear a pro fighter's analysis of what went down on Saturday. So Jared, we'll be picking your brains here a little bit. Sony, why don't you kick things off? Maybe do a quick intro, and we'll get right into the discussion.
Yeah, so Jared, we were lucky to chat with you last year. I know things didn't go as planned last fight, but looking forward here, you're fighting Justin Tafa. I wouldn't say a veteran of the sport because he only has 6 professional fights. Just curious on what you think of him as a fighter and how you match up against him.
I actually nothing negative to say. I think he has some good training partners. I like his brother, for example, is a good glory kickboxer. Before this fight was even a thing, I was actually a fan of his older brother. Or, I think it's younger brother, Junior Tafa. So I know that he definitely has a good kickboxing background. Mark Hunt, I heard, was one that has been in his corner before. So I'm not. I know the kind of style that he has. It's a good Muay Thai kickboxing, hard-nosed, hard-fought kind of fighter.
Yeah.
That's his style, and I think, I'm more of a technical striker. He's more of I'm going to hurt you with a big overhand, or not overhand, but big left or a really strong right hook. So, I do think that he has the power definitely to make it a very interesting fight.
Yeah, and I remember watching his last fight. That was a pretty good fight. It ended up being a split decision loss for him, but it was a banger on the feet. So, not to give anything away, obviously, but I could envision maybe you mixing it up a little bit with him, not just, standing and throwing for 3 rounds. Is that probably a fair assessment or?
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if he even tried to take me down based off the poor showing I had in my last fight. Let's not act like it was a great showing on my end, especially on the grappling end. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, screw it. I'm going to take this guy down and beat him up. So I could definitely see this go on the ground at least once for this fight. So I wouldn't, be like, it's going to be a stand-up fight. I do know, looking at the size and his build, that getting his ass to the ground is going to be hard as hell. But, maybe if I could get him there and hold him there, that could be a turning point of the fight.
Yeah, fair enough. Who's next here? Who's got a question?
I guess I'll go. So I don't know if you've ever seen our podcast, but we like to break down the last week's event, just kind of do our analysis. Would love to hear from you. I know a popular topic in our group chat was a bit about Tony Ferguson and the next steps for him. Obviously not his best showing. He seems to have, gone downhill the last few fights. So in your eyes, what do you think's next for Tony, and what do you think would be the smartest move in his career?
That one's interesting because Tony is Tony. And to sit there and he's lost to this person. What, he lost to Gaethje, who, let's be real, it's Gaethje. He's not no slack jaw. His last 2 guys that he lost to are both top 2, top 3 guys.
Yes.
So he's not losing to scrubs. Now, if he was losing to a guy in the ranks 15, then I'd be like, hanging up. And he's not losing dramatically. Granted, he survived a heel hook that I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Darius said he heard it popping and cracking.
It hurt my knee. I was like,
well, you know how that feels like, yeah, right? Just in training.
I didn't watch the fights, but I saw the highlight of that. I'm like, oh, my knee.
Yeah, and Dariush has won 7 in a row too, right? And he jumped up in the rankings to number 3. So like you said, like he's not fighting scrubs. I know Zeman here really believes that Gaethje fight took a lot out of him. It changed him forever. So I mean, he did take a beating. So that can happen sometimes. But yeah, I think he needs to step a little lower on the next matchup, somebody closer to 15 rather than fighting all these killers in the top 5.
And he needs to take a break. Was it he fought? Yeah, no, because I totally forgot who he fought before this guy was Charles,
Charlie Olives. Yeah.
the current champion.
Yeah.
So he went 3 rounds with the current champ. He went 3 rounds with this guy. It's like, and when was that fight? That fight was December.
December 12th. Yeah. So not too
He had the
long ago.
Gaethje fight. I mean, he's been in the sport. He's going to be relevant for a while. He could take some time off to recover, heal up, and come back scarier than ever. I don't think Tony has to fight every he could take a little bit more time off. What 4 months between Charles and this fight, 4.5 months. He could take a little bit more time to himself. He's earned it. And I think that will help him bounce back for his next fight if he possibly wants one.
Yeah, he's probably going to need that time off too with that knee. There's no way he didn't take some damage with that.
I think all of our knees took a year away. That was brutal.
Pop an Advil after watching that. Yeah, and maybe he becomes like more of a gatekeeper where he's facing some of these like up and comer young guns, right? And that's his new kind of role, like near the end of this.
I'd honestly love to see him and Cerrone go again. Now at this current point in their careers.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would. Oh, was it? I would though. I kind of want Poirier to win against Conor, so we could finally have that Tony and McGregor fight. We know we deserve that fight.
Yeah, I'd watch that. I'd sign me up for that.
It'd be way more interesting than I think a lot of the other fights that could possibly land on the table.
Yeah. Does anyone have any question quick, or can I throw one more here?
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. So Cormier today, was talking about the judges' scorecards and that first round of the championship fight on the weekend. Oliveira, they had him down 10-8 in that round, right? The two judges that scored that 10-8 also scored a 10-8. Do you remember when Anthony Smith got pummeled by Glover Teixeira?
His teeth were falling out of his head.
In Brazil, I think.
Yeah, he lost all his teeth, and they scored that at 10-8. So basically, Cormier saying talking about the scoring here. I'm just interested in your perspective, how you could, how the two same judges could score that first round. It ended up being competitive by the end between Oliveira and Chandler, and also scoring someone's teeth getting pummeled, and they should have actually should have been stopped maybe quite a bit earlier with the Anthony Smith and the Teixeira fight at 10-8. That it shouldn't be that like big of a difference, but scored the same. Do you think there should be a change in the scoring system, and if so, what would do you think would be best?
So there's a few factors. Like I'm sure DC's thought about this, so I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh no. But I don't know if you guys know this. Former UFC judge is Lester Griffin. He's a UFC judge. I actually trained his son, so I do hear what like some of the things that like me. I bounce things off of his head because there's been plenty of times where he's like, yeah, some of these judges are just whack.
Yeah.
And he goes, but there are some times where I'm at an angle. I'm not seeing the fight. I'm seeing their asses. And I'm trying to figure out whose arms what. And then I'm kind of looking at a screen for a better angle, but I'm trying to get this visual. and then they move across, and then now something changed. That every time that happens, my perspective changes, and I think that's one thing that we have to understand is they're humans. Their perspectives of it where they're stationed will change from our perspective. We have maybe the best seats in the house because of the cameramen. They, and the camera crew, they're trying their best to get everything down, gritty, and whatnot. The judges, they don't get that same reaction. Like, oh, well, it's either they watch it live or they watch it on the camera. And even on the camera, it doesn't show everything like it should. And it becomes a whole different scenario that, fight fans don't understand. Now, I also do believe that they have changed the rules for judging since I think this Anthony and Teixeira fight
Sure.
to this weekend. So, I mean, to have the same two judges score something the same could just be change of rules and change of viewership of how things have changed through the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, in like a hockey arena or an NBA arena, what if they were situated in a room instead of cage side, and they had big screens and had the same visual as us? Would that possibly work?
Yes and no. Because there's something about being close where it gives you a different feel. Like there's sometimes where you might not hear the punch, but you could see the punch, and you're just like, oh, or like you can't see the sweat fly off the person, but in person you're like, oh shit, that landed harder than it looked.
Yeah.
Unless it's Jorge Masvidal, in which case you can see it
Yeah.
going.
Getting spraying the crowd.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where
Good point.
I don't think it's a perfect system, but I would say, have, maybe two judges on the floor and maybe a third one in that viewpoint. So you have one that might have a different bias, and the bias more towards what people like. So it's a weird one for me. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what you do, there's no pleasing.
No perfect answer.
Do you feel like they should bring in the possibility of 10-7s? Because there's been like 2 10-7s that I've ever seen in MMA, and like going back to that Glover versus Anthony Smith, I think the strike count was something crazy like 80-2 for Glover in that round. I feel like they need more than just the 10-9 or the 10-8
The binary.
Boxing, if you get dominated and you get knocked down 4 times, it's a 10-6. You feel like they could bring in anything like that if you're
I don't know. One, because I think once we start complicating things a lot more, it takes away from like, oh well, what makes something more dominant over another? Like you get in a great match with a jiu-jitsu guy and you're surviving all the submissions, but let's say he's not punching you enough. But it was a very dominant round. Are you gonna say that's more effective than, the punches? Like you go, let's say you're strangling someone and you're strangling, but they always pull out some way, somehow. Now they're choking, they are, their cardio's dropped already. So that's going to play dividends in later rounds, but to sit there and be like, yeah, that's not as effective as a punch. Sometimes it's easier to get punched in the face than have your cardio drop because of the choke.
Yeah, that's fair, true.
Very subjective, right?
You
might think submissions are way harder to get out of and vice versa, right? So who's to say you're right or I'm right? Like it's tough.
Yeah, like I've survived more punches in TKO like scenarios than I have submissions. Not my last fight where I lost, but like two, 3 fights ago, I fought Henan Farrell. He's more notable for tapping to Verdum and then TKO him and then it being ruled a no contest.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I fought him. a lot like I'm not gonna say anything negative about him. Me and him had a clean fight. That's all I have to say about him as a character. But one of the things that he did was I don't remember what was happening. I was coming forward. I walked the wrong way. I brought my feet together. He threw across. It landed and I fell to my ass. I was like, fuck. I immediately regained guard. But from that guard, I was throwing elbows. But he was throwing elbows. I went for 2 different armbar attempts, a knee bar attempt. I get on the wall. I work my way up. And at any point where Mike Beltran saw me defending as much as I can, I took like a shit ton of punches, knees, and then I body locked him. Wasn't expecting him to fall on the trip. Like, in all fairness, he went down on my trip. I tripped him. He went down, but immediately I fell right into a triangle. I tried to step around, and that was the end of the fight. The triangle was quicker. It did a lot more in a matter of like 10 seconds than all the punches did in the whole entire time. So,
Yeah, fair enough. I understand what you're trying to say there.
It's kind of funny you bring that up too, because we were actually going to ask you a bit about the Verdum scenario a couple of weeks ago in PFL, and it actually talks to your point about the judges being cage side in an intimate setting, not seeing everything going on. Look at the ref; he couldn't even see the tap. He's 5 feet away. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's the age-old challenge, right? Umpires in baseball, umps calling bad strikes or bad balls, like it's gonna happen, right?
The human error, right?
Yeah.
Comes down to that. We do a segment on our podcast here. Ben Zeman is the kind of the head of that. We do some betting lines and who we think's going to win and stuff like that for our fans. But we did pick Ferreira in that, so we ended up winning that. But then a couple days later, Verdum challenged it and protested it, and it became a no contest. That didn't affect the bet at all, but we were wondering if it would get overturned, and it did, because they had that extra time to review it, right? So human error does happen, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And you can't restart the fight after that, after he TKO'd him. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to, my fight with him was clean. I can't really say anything bad about. Now, if you know who one of his training partners is, this isn't like a mind-blowing, like, oh my God. His training partner is Paul Harris.
Oh yeah.
He kind of known for being a dick in the sport. So, I mean,
Reputation.
Yeah.
Not saying it was his fault. Maybe it was he went to tap once. He was like, you know what, I'm not tapping again. Like, he did that one. Oh, you know what, I'm good type of thing. And he was like, fuck it, I'm in a better position. Or yeah, he could have been like, oh, like a jackass. That, again, that's one of those things where at first he could have been like, I've been in triangle chokes where I'm like, oh, I'm good. I can survive this, because his legs gassed. And that could have been a thing where he was like, he gassed, a punch. And that's the thing. Like, now I also do commend the ref, because the ref himself said, if I saw that, I would, crap. Sorry about that, guys. So sorry if I lost track. Technical error on my part.
It's all good.
All good, man.
But kind of on the point where when you're in a triangle or even submission, your opponent doing this is why I say submissions and punches are a very subjective part, because sometimes a punch, could land but not do as much damage. But you're fighting a submission, you're actually using your whole body in between, like an arm bar. Well, most people know that. You're using your arms to hold down the arm forward and straight. You're using the legs to control the head and body. You're using your hips to lift up the elbow to pop it. And it's a full body exercise. And, if one of your parts give out, you're like, someone's fighting and someone's fighting it, a part gives out. And then boom, you're now into a submit, like that person's tired. You have your opportunity to win now. So that's just one of those things where I think, it could have happened, but at the same time, Verdum's not that guy to be like, he felt the taps, he loosened the choke so the ref could see it, but Hennon, might have just taken the opportunity to beat him up. And it's a shitty situation no matter what way you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Just wanted to ask you quickly about the heavyweight division, the landscape of the division. I think it's starting to become one of the better divisions in the UFC. They're starting to get a lot bigger names, younger guys that are starting to climb. What do you think of the division right now? Is there a couple guys that you think could make a great run here to get up to the top, or a couple guys that you respect, kind of obviously you respect everyone, but you respect the skills they have to maybe move up the ladder quicker than most.
Yeah, no, like you look at like Tom Aspinall, I think he's going to do good. Sergey could possibly do pretty good because Sergey
Pavlovich?
no,
Spivak, yeah.
Spivak with Juan Espinosa, Espino or whatever. I'm sorry.
Oh, Espino, yeah.
Espino, that's it. What's that Romanian cat that beat him?
Alexander Romanov.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alexander. Yeah, you get these high level grapplers. I think could possibly really change the
like the landscape.
Landscape. Because the one thing though that still bothers me is you're still having fighters that are still one dimensional, especially in the heavyweight division. Kind of like my current opponent and my last opponent. Okay, Spivak's really great at his grappling. Then you look at my current opponent, Tafa, really known for his kickboxing.
Yep.
But there's not a lot of the one downside to a lot of the fighters here is if you exploit their strong suit, you're not going to necessarily have anything to worry about on one end. And that's kind of an issue, I think, highly. Is that, I will say this. I think the nerves got the best of me in my last fight because once we hit the ground, I didn't do nothing. I didn't react. And I overplayed it in my head. But now thinking about it, Duke came past my half guard for the most part. And it's like, okay, that's my fault. If he couldn't pass my half guard and I didn't do nothing with it, I'm like, I'm better at this jiu-jitsu stuff. I am a black belt. I need to start acting like one. And, my stand-up's pretty solid too. And I don't think there's a lot of heavyweights besides, Tom Aspinall. I've heard a lot more rumors, but, Francis is very one-dimensional. But, I mean, from what I've gathered, he's doing a lot of training in the jiu-jitsu realm. So I'm not going to knock him, but a lot of guys are kind of one-dimensional. Like, okay, we'll go to the former champion, Stipe. Boxed and wrestled. The best way to be a boxer and wrestler? Kick him in the legs enough times. You find out the ways to beat some of these guys, then you have opportunities to really win. And Derek Lewis is kind of another person, not necessarily known for his ground. Big shots, really flexible. If you could get him to the ground, you can possibly beat him. So I think there's a lot more heavyweights that need to infuse their styles a lot more. And yeah.
Yeah, just one more quick thing, and then I'll let someone else go here before we finish up. We don't have too much time left. Last time we talked, we did mention because we're from Canada about Tanner Boser. I know you saw him in the hotel. Just wondering how you think he'll fare next weekend against Alir Atifi.
Wait, that's this next weekend?
Yeah. No, sorry.
5th, the
There's
5th.
a week off. There's a week
June
off. So
5th.
that the card after this weekend.
I was like, oh God. That one's like, I was like,
False
shit.
alarm.
That like, no, I'm thinking that fight was like 2-3 weeks out.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
It is. That's my
2.5.
fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe even July. I thought I was like, I forgot. Oh, that one's gonna be a hard one. Bosner, I think he's really good. I like Latifi as a person. I think Latifi is an awesome human. I met him at the PI, and he was like one of the coolest dudes ever. I was like, he was down to earth, fucking the size of a brick though. Like dude is massive, but nonetheless, I don't know. I think Bosner has maybe more skills, but I think if Latifi gets a hold of him, gets him on the wall, grounds and pounds him and stuff like that, I think Latifi could win this. I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. I like Latifi. I like Bosner. I'm interested to see who wins. I really can't really make a solid prediction.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be more of a wrestler versus striker kind of battle, and it's going to be fun. But I know this. Bosner doesn't lose by getting knocked out. I don't think he's been knocked out, and he might have early on in his career. I think a lot of them are like decision losses.
Yeah, he lost one in 10 seconds one time against a former Canadian heavyweight who actually passed away, but that was one of his only knockouts, I think, that he
6
he
years
endured.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, years ago. I think he's recovered from that, and then ever since then, it's literally been fucking guys that beat him by points or something. Like no one's knocked the dude out, no one's finished him. So the dude's not not someone to take lightly. So
Yeah, and he's been in there with some pretty good competition.
right,
Yeah, UD lost to Cyril Gahn.
yeah.
That's a joke.
Orlovsky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arlovsky as well.
Did I honestly? I'm a Orlowski fan. I did not think he was going to lose to Orlowski. I
We didn't either. We criticized a little bit with his offense. Ben Zeman.
Conservative.
yeah.
Just
Yeah, I was like, I remember because it was obviously the week after my fight on the Contender Series. I remember I was at a casino in Temecula, and me and the wife, we were just out and about, and she's like, hey, you did. I'm very proud of you. Like, let's go out. So we're out. I'm being a little bougie, gave me some Johnny Walker Blue. And then I look up, I'm like, oh shit, this fight's going on now. Like, so I'm sipping, and I'm just like, dude, you're better than this. Like, I mean, I like Orlowski, but I thought he was better than Orlowski. So
we did too.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he comes back from that.
I think he's gonna come out strong. I think I'm looking forward to it. I like Latifi as a person, so it's an emotional strain.
I think Latifi's going to be the desperate fighter coming off 3 losses, right? He's almost fighting for a job at this point, so
Possibly
might have a fire in his belly.
true, but I mean, in all fairness, he went up. Was his last fight was his first fight at heavyweight.
Yeah.
The heavyweight division isn't too big, and we don't have a lot of big names yet. I mean, outside of the top 5, that's kind of it. I mean, we know him, but the average household doesn't know.
Casual.
Yeah, and like, it's not a bad thing, but we have to be aware and be able to cater to the average person, not the massive fight fans. You guys will always know who's around, who's important, who's not, because that's your interest. That's not everyone's going to do that. Not like everyone knows who Francis is. A lot of people know who Derek Lewis is. DC, and then John Jones, Stipe. After that, people are just, ooh.
They turn on ESPN and
Yeah.
let's
So
hope for a good fight.
yeah, no, and that's kind of where, I think Latifi, he's still a smaller name in the light heavyweight division, but he's still a bigger name than most.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the heavyweights, Like I'll use an example, Ben Rothwell. He's still not as big of a name nowadays as it should have been. You know, he could have easily blown up, but we don't have those big names that are drawing in the heavyweight division just yet, and that's a lack of a lot of things. And hopefully, I eventually change some of that, but that's on other people too. Like I think I'll use John Jones. I think one of the biggest problems with John Jones crying about all this money and him going up to heavyweight is he's already cleared out all the names, the big household names in the light heavyweight division. He's cleared it out so much that he never let any of the other names shine through. Dom, Jan, Jerry. None of them got to really shine because he was the name. Like everyone got crushed in one way or another by him. Now him going up to heavyweight opens up a few new possibilities. The fact that Izzy went up to open up that possibility. Those are the people that are going to stand a little bit more of a test of time than Jones is until he fights one of those bigger names.
Yeah. So the card this weekend. Are you the third fight from the top?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah. So it's a good spotlight here. You got your bantamweight main event there, and then you're third from the top against Tafa. So we're just finishing up here, but we really appreciate you coming on, and we wish you the best of luck this weekend. We think you're going to get a big W. So, boys, any other last comments here? We just have a minute and a half left.
Yeah. Well, you got your start. Obviously, your Contender Series was at the Apex as well, right?
Yeah.
Three in a row. Has there been any change with Fight Week being in there since between Contender Series to now being on a main card slot?
No, nothing really, except kind of the rules of COVID. So Contender Series, they were far more strict on us. But then once we got signed, and they're like, they're still pretty strict, but they definitely laxed on the rules once lax meaning you get COVID tests, you could step outside for 5 minutes and go back into your room. They have more shuttle opportunities, but for the most part, they were pretty more on point with the contender fighters than they are the UFC fighters. I know it's slowing down because COVID's finally opening up, and they're not as strenuously hard, but they still are doing what they need to do to keep the show afloat.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're just finishing up here. So we just wanted to wish you luck this weekend. Thanks so much for your time, Jared. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to chatting in the future sometime. Good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, man. Just looking forward.
Thanks, Jared. We'll have a Johnny Walker Blue for your win.
Awesome.
Take care, bro.
Later, buddy.
But
Bye.